Hi, my name is Jack Gilbert. I'm a missionary with Send International. My family and I are missionaries preparing to go to Spain to plant churches that reproduce and to make disciples that make disciples. This video series is built out of a number of interviews that I conducted with missionaries in the field. As you watch, you're going to learn of the deep spiritual need in Spain. Spain needs the gospel. You're going to find out exactly what the spiritual condition of the country is and how you can partner with us to make disciples that make disciples. This is Giles and Debbie Davis. They're missionaries with Send International, and they're in Spain. And just want to say thank you for coming and talking to us.
Thanks for having us.
So maybe talk a little bit about yourselves and then kind of transition into your call into ministry and how you ended up in Spain in particular.
I was a youth pastor in the States, and Deb worked human resources with Big Idea Productions, and the Lord really started laying it on our hearts, the burden to do youth ministry in a place where it wasn't being done so much, where there just really wasn't as much going on for youth. It felt like there's a lot of need in the States, but there was also a lot of people able to meet those needs, a lot of people pouring into youth in the States, and just an ache that the Lord was putting in our hearts for reaching youth who didn't have anybody pouring into them. And we began to look into where that might be, and Spain was well, Deb grew up in Spain, but so that was kind of like the first place we looked, and we figured God can close the door if he wants. Instead of that, he flung it wide open and
shoved us on the ride.
Yeah, and then now we're really more focused on youth leader training and coordination, organization of youth groups and youth ministry around the country.
Why is youth ministry in Spain so important?
I remember my childhood here was when there was still a dictatorship, and when that fell apart and life in Spain started changing for people, a vast majority of the population who had been forced to be Catholic politically, socially, culturally, decided that's enough. I'm not forced anymore. There's nobody dictating that I have to do this anymore. And the floodgates were open, and lots of people of that generation left the faith entirely, not just the church, but the faith entirely. Their children were raised to have options, but they had watched it all happen. The grandchildren are today's youth, and they have had absolutely nothing, pretty much no influence. They might have a grandparent who might talk about back in the day, or might even still go and pray occasionally in a Catholic chapel, but very, very, very few of that age even still do. But the youth, absolutely not at all. So there's a tremendous openness to discover, and any young person reaches that moment in life where they don't know who they are, where they came from, what's the purpose, what's their purpose in life, and all these questions start coming up. They really don't have their parents' generation or their grandparents' generation there with any significant answers for them. So they turn to very worldly options, very secular options. And we find, in my opinion, we find that the openness that they have in that natural search at that age is a tremendous open door.
We kind of have made the joke before that basically everybody here is doing youth ministry. All these people come and they try to plant a church.
And they end up doing youth ministry.
And who comes? They do evangelism in the park, or they go and they seek to share the gospel with people. Who responds? It's all young people.
Searching people.
And there's very few of the 60+ generation that are looking to make a major shift in their religious beliefs. There are some, but it's very few. So that anybody coming to do church planting ends up with a church full of new believers who are all young people. So they might as well just call themselves youth ministers, but they don't want to do that. So fine, we're just saying it like it is.
Right. Well, and so what I heard you say is that there's a large generational gap. Like there aren't people from the older generations passing on faith in Christ, and so you have a lack of witness there, and so there's this large silence in terms of spreading the gospel.
Yeah,
Well,
and even the Reformation never made it to Spain. It kind of
Right.
got impeded. So even what Christ really means, who he really is, and what he really did for us, some of those concepts didn't even quite make it with the Reformation. So
I would even go so far as to say that a lot of it's far not so much a silence, but a lot of those parents, at least the grandparents of the parents, passed on a distaste, a disgust for the church and for Christ and for Christianity, a loathing and a rejection, a bitterness. There's a bitterness in that generation, and their grandkids, for them it's just kind of religion and Christ and Jesus and all that. That's just kind of irrelevant. But so their parents passed on less of the bitterness because they didn't experience like the hypocrisy and the abuse the way that the grandparents' generation did. But there's been passed on, and I think even some of the youth though they'll have kind of like a hostility towards Christianity, but not even really know why. They don't.
There's a general hostility towards anything or anybody who tells you this is black and white. If it's absolutely this or that, then there's a hostility against that.
Yeah.
So sharing the gospel is difficult to any age, but it's not difficult when we just talk about our own faith. What is the Bible in my life? Why do I go to it? It's God alive, and that's where I find him and feed from what he has for me. He's my creator. When I talk about me, no problem. But if I say you, that's where I find issues.
Have you found that since you're reaching younger people, those people obviously have parents and grandparents that would want to know, or are they at all mildly curious, what happened to my grandkid? Why is he so passionate about this? Does that happen?
Yeah, I find that to be the case. Yeah. The young person or young couple or whoever it might be has to live Christ in front of their own families. And then there are some examples who say, okay, what happened to my sibling? What happened to my son? And you'll see them start attending things that the church puts on, but they'll hold it back. Say, I'm doing this because this is social work, or I'm doing this because it's a fundraiser for a good cause or whatever. But you know that they're curious, and you know that they're seeing things.
Mm-hmm.
We had one great testimony of a person who had, several, but one particular that comes to mind, that attended Misión Posible, our national youth event, and went home a believer. And the very next Sunday, the dad wanted to be at the church that she had come to the event with to find out what happened. I've never seen my daughter like this. Something significant has changed in her life. I have never seen whatever this is. And it was such a change for the good in her. That was an instant situation where the family had curiosity. And that pastor followed up with us to say, just so you know, there's a family affected here based on this young person's decision.
My wife and I would love to talk to you about how you can partner with us in making disciples in Spain. You can contact us at jsgilbert@sin.org. Also, you can learn more by visiting our website, bit.ly/Gilbert's in Spain.